Welcome, welcome to the Techier Teacher OBS workshop for music teachers. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm just going to dive right in and hope that you guys are able to follow along. And if you missed something, just remember you can always catch it on the replay. I'm going to share a little bit of a presentation just so I keep myself on track today. Here we go. Oh, nice. There we go. Okay. Took a second for my camera to show up. Okay. So, just so you know, I have a resource guide that has all of the download links and stuff you probably didn't even expect for today that you can access on this free Google Doc. Lots of cool stuff in here. As I mentioned, like links and stuff, I'm not going to put as many of those into the chat. I'm going to rely on you to scan this, get this Google Doc, and later on you can follow through it and access my additional guides for what we're covering today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Welcome everyone, especially for those of you who are tuning in from out of the United States. My name is Ian Belloso, and I am a piano teacher based out of Pennsylvania. I'm in the town of Bethlehem in Pennsylvania, which is eastern United States. I moved here actually from California a couple years ago now, and I came here with my lovely wife, Leslie, who's also a musician. She plays the clarinet, and she plays in a band. And actually, she plays piano as well. I've taught her a little bit myself. And we also have a couple kitties. Blue is gray, and the ginger cat you're seeing there, his name is Henry. He's the shyest cat you've ever not met because you would never meet him. In fact, I tell my students that I have two cats, and one of them you probably will never meet. So, I teach not exclusively anymore. I teach both in person, but I also teach virtual lessons. And I taught before the pandemic, actually, so I had a lot of experience with what we're going to be talking about today, even before everyone had to kind of jump in and figure things out during 2020. But since then, I have become somewhat of a virtual lessons expert, and I've used OBS, which we're going to be talking about a lot today. You're seeing me right now in a different type of program that's similar to OBS called Ecamm Live, and I'll mention that a little bit today as well, but we won't be diving into any tutorials for that because we're here for OBS. All right, so let's talk about just some conceptual things to start with here. If you ever watched the live sports news, like live sports or news programs on TV, you'll sometimes get like behind the scenes glimpses of that control center that's inside the newsroom. And this is what's called the broadcast production area of the show. And in collaboration with teams of people working both in front and behind the cameras, there's another team of producers and directors that are working in that control room. At any given moment, this team directs which person's microphone is on and which camera is being used, but they're often combining those live elements together with lighting and lots of different media, things like music, titles, subtitles, close-ups, interviews with other people on the phone, right? So they're making phone calls or they're going to a different location. And even the commercials are seamlessly combined and mixed together in a sequence that creates the show. So that's a broadcast control center. And although our online lessons are never that complex, really, we will be using powerful software that effectively puts us in the director's chair, similar to what I just talked about. And using this software with a combination of your different media, you can elevate your online lessons up to that professional broadcasting level. So a broadcast control center is essentially, go back to that slide, it's a type of software that facilitates the capture and combination of video, audio, and other media. And then it has the ability also to broadcast that to what's called a live streaming platform. So that would be like right now, we're on YouTube, I'm broadcasting to YouTube. But you could also broadcast it directly to a private channel, which could be your website or your video conferencing software, your online teaching software, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So I mentioned Ecamm Live, which is what I'm using right now, and we're going to be talking mostly about OBS Studio, but these are the top 3 like most popular broadcast control software. They all roughly do the same thing. The main differences I've kind of highlighted here for our purposes has to do with whether or not they have an included virtual camera, which is what allows us to connect it to RockOutLoud.Live, Zoom, or whatever video conferencing software you're using, and a virtual microphone. And you'll notice that OBS Studio does not have a virtual microphone, but we're not going to have any issues with that today. I'll show you how to get around that problem. But one of the reasons I switched to Ecamm Live eventually is because they have both. It is a paid product, and so is Minicam. OBS is free. And so maybe we should talk about OBS itself a little bit. OBS stands for Open Broadcast Software. And the open part is referring to the fact that the software is that the code of the software is open source. So that means that it's public and other software developers can contribute to the project and make plugins, improve the software in lots of ways. Open source software is commonly free, and it's financed by sponsorships and donations from various organizations as well as individual users, rather than using like a subscription fee, which is what Ecamm does, for instance. So OBS is a broadcast control center software, which means it has the ability to capture and combine video, audio, and media into containers that we call scenes. And then you can connect your OBS to a live streaming platform or a private channel, and then you can broadcast that media, just like we were talking about a second ago. So if you've ever been to a recording studio, or maybe you even have kind of some recording studio stuff in your home, or in your music studio, you've probably seen that huge mixing console, or maybe you have a little itty bitty version, a mixer of some kind, that sound engineers use to capture all the musicians together into a recording. So you create layers, right? All the instruments have to be combined and mixed together. And OBS is kind of like that. It's kind of like a mixing console, only instead of capturing just sound, it captures video as well. So some people think of OBS as a video mixer. A lot of people don't realize that this type of software was originally developed for live stream video gamers on Twitch, YouTube, and other platforms. It's actually still used a lot by gamers today, and that's why it's so difficult to find tutorials that apply to our teaching music use case. Most of the tutorials that you're going to come across are either aimed at those gamers or other, like what we call content creators. It's commonly used by lots of those content creators now for live streaming pretty much anything. So you'll see everything from church services to music performances, broadcast live, and quite a bit of the time they're using one of these software like OBS. So if it's designed for gamers and content creators, why should we use it? What's the benefit for music teachers? Some of the benefits are it's cross-platform compatibility. So this works on both Windows and Mac. And it's fairly similar on both. I think they did a pretty good job of designing it to work the same way on both platforms. It actually works on Linux apparently as well, which if you don't know what Linux is, don't worry. It's another OS. It has most of the same powerful features that are included in paid software alternatives. And the fact that it's customizable and open source is kind of a good thing, actually, because you'll see updates and improvements pretty often, but it's free. In addition, I think it's worth considering some more specific benefits for music teachers. So one of the reasons I think it's really good to have a broadcast control software, particularly OBS, is that you have the ability to create and have more control over this virtual environment. It's like you're creating a cinematic experience, right, for your students. And by cinematic, I mean a somewhat magical realm where reality is suspended for an agreed upon length of time. It's a theatrical production. There's a bit of theater, in the sense that you do want your students to watch, but remember, theater has never been passive. The popularity of video games proves this. Audience interaction has always been a characteristic of good theater, right? Speaking of audience interaction, I'm talking to a camera, and this is sort of weird for me because I'm used to interacting directly with a student or through Zoom. This is different. This is a live stream, and so the only way I have of interacting with you is in the chat. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat here. I see that a few people introduced themselves. If you haven't already, just put a little note in the chat. Hey, my name is so-and-so, or I'm with such and such studio, and I'm from Goodtown, USA, or Goodtown, Australia, or wherever you're from. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, I put, if you kind of scroll up to the top of the chat, you'll see there's a link to that resource, that downloadable resource, that you can get all the links for today on one document, as well as some additional help with other things. So I'm just going to continue on here. And if it feels like I'm rushing a little bit, it's because I have a lot to cover today, and we haven't even gotten into the tutorial part, right? But I want to cover this and just make sure you understand sort of the context of, you know, why this is important. So online music teachers need less reliance on platforms for particular features. And OBS provides more independence like that. So a lot of you are here because Google Chrome had some sort of issue with being able to switch your camera in RockOutLoud.Live. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I was completely unaffected by that because of my ability to use my broadcast control center for camera switching. We'll talk more about that. But you know, that versatility and the ability to use the software in a number of different ways is another highlight, I think, because you can use it for lessons, but you could also record tutorials that way, and you can kind of do it in one take because you're not having to, you know, do as much editing if you are able to just switch cameras and switch views while you're doing your tutorial. And by the way, it's fantastic for online recitals, which is something I do every year. Especially around Christmas time, I like to do my live stream concert and recital event for my students, and it's actually a big hit. So we've talked about the what and the why. Next, we're going to dive right into how to use OBS Studio. So before we do, I just want to mention the content today's discussion is applicable to one specific use case, which is live lessons delivered via a connected online teaching platform. But there are other possibilities. I kind of mentioned this already. You know, you can record tutorials, you can live stream, and you can essentially connect it to any video conferencing platform. Zoom and RockOutLoud.Live, those are definitely, you know, the top ones probably, but really anything I could switch between if I need to. In fact, I have some students that are on RockOutLoud.Live and some that are on another platform right now, and I easily switch between them without having to do too much, you know, to my setup other than opening a different app. Okay, so let's talk about installation and getting a hold of OBS Studio. Maybe just before we go on, if you wouldn't mind just typing in the chat, I'm with you, or a thumbs up, or maybe hit like and just give me some feedback, because again, I'm talking to a camera. It feels like I'm talking to an empty stage. It's just a little bit awkward for me. Believe it or not, I don't do this all the time. I'm like you, I'm a music teacher. I love having the feedback directly from the students. So that would really help me. So before installing, maybe this is not an issue for some of you. Hopefully it's not. But before installing, it's good to take some time just to, before you do any software, really to know a couple things. And that is, what's the system requirements, and does my system meet those requirements? For Windows 11, you can actually find your system requirements, and I have a guide for this in that downloadable that I mentioned. That takes you step by step with screenshots and that whole thing. So if you don't know your system specs, or like whether or not it's going to work with OBS, because some people think OBS takes up a lot of resources, it can. And that's because you're using multiple cameras. But you know, if you have an older computer, that might be a problem. If you have a newer computer, that may not. So it's always good to just check. On Apple computers, on MacBooks, you can do the same thing. Check your system requirements, your system specs. I keep saying the wrong word. By just going up to the Apple menu and clicking on About This Mac. Again, this is all in the guide, and the link to go download OBS Studio is in the guide as well, but it's pretty easy to just Google. Make sure you just type in OBS Studio to make sure that you end up at the right place. OBS could stand for a lot of different things, so make sure you're going to the right one. But if you go there and you go to the download page, you can get started and set up right away. The download's actually pretty straightforward, and even the page itself will guide you through which option to pick and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to jump right into what I think is one of the greatest features, which is that OBS has this auto configuration. So you're not really having to get in and like figure out all the settings. A lot of videos and tutorials I see are all about the settings in OBS, and I do talk about this with my one-on-one teachers. And I had a video course. I had a video course that I talked about this a little bit more too. We're going to kind of just rush through some of this today because I think this auto configuration actually handles a lot more. Quick question from the chat. I just want to make sure. Is this workshop currently in session? Seeing nothing on my screen. Music with Judy. Nope, this is Chrysanthemum fan. Okay, let me just. This question was just popped up, and I want to make sure that they're able to access. Let's do this down here, just so you guys can see. Chrysanthemum fan, if you are not seeing anything, you may want to, or I'll just answer in the chat, sorry. Yeah, Music with Judy, thank you. I think you just answered, so I'm going to move on because she can't even hear me. Let me just put in the chat here. Music with Judy. Okay. Okay, remember, if you have any problems for today, remember there is going to be a replay. This is being recorded, so we'll be in good shape. Okay, so let's just keep going. Talk about auto config. So when you first, again, go get this resource guide, people, because it will help walk you through a lot of these settings. And I don't want to spend too much time on that today because we're already almost at the half-hour mark, and I want to make sure that we're covering everything. Okay, so whether you're in Mac or Windows, you're going to go up to the toolbar, and when you go to that toolbar, tools, the first thing you see is auto configure. And when you open up that wizard, you're just going to click optimize for just recording. All right. Now, if you know about streaming and you want to use it for that, go for it. Great. But you don't need to. In fact, the first time you set up this profile, it's better to do recording, not streaming. You can still use the virtual camera, so don't worry about that. Go ahead and just select that middle one, and then you're going to move on. See, it works the same way in Windows, Tools, Auto Configuration Wizard. Today is not a step-by-step, by the way, people. This is something you're going to have to kind of work through later, so I wouldn't recommend having OBS open right now trying to do stuff with me. I'm not going to be going slow enough for that, honestly, and we're going to be covering a lot of other things. Okay, so if you run that configuration wizard, even if you've never done that before, I would recommend doing it, because what it will do is it will actually scan your hardware, your machine, and set up OBS. It will optimize it for you, and I recommend you select 1920 by 1080 as your display. That's your canvas resolution, and it will run. And it takes a couple minutes usually, but when it's done, you'll get this little final results tally. It'll kind of tell you, how it's set it up. If you don't understand any of that, don't even worry about it. That is the whole reason you want that, is because it's going to show you what to do. Okay. Then the other thing you might deal with is permissions, especially on Macs. When you first open up OBS, it'll ask you to turn on camera permissions in your settings for, what's it called? It's going to ask you for access to your camera. It's going to ask you for access to screen recording. It's going to ask you for access to a bunch of different things. And I recommend that you just go through that. I have a macOS permissions guide link in the resource guide that you are getting today. So this is just a little overview of the different elements that you're going to see. So that preview canvas, that's where the action is. It's just going to show you whatever's on that sort of pink outline preview canvas is what your students are going to see. Your students aren't going to see any of this other stuff where the scenes and the sources and the mixer and all that is. That's just for you. And I'll be demonstrating that in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead here actually a little bit. Let me just pull up my notes so I can see how we're going to do this. Okay, so before we dive into building scenes, I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and show you the end result first, because most of you came to this workshop because Google Chrome created that problem for roll recently. And like I said, I was unaffected because I had my broadcast control center set up. So give me just a second. I'm actually going to launch OBS, and then I'm going to show you how I would connect this with RockOutLoud.Live, or any, really any, oops, yeah, there we go. Okay, so any any video conferencing software is the word I'm looking for. It can connect with anything, but I'm going to show you in Roll specifically. So let's do that. I'm going to go to Share Desktop, and there we go. Okay, so I got rid of myself, and you're just seeing OBS over here, which is blank right now. We're going to fix that in a second. And I have Google Chrome open incognito with RockOutLoud.Live, okay? And I'm signed in. So the first thing I'm going to do, and you don't need to do this, this is just because I want to be able to demonstrate for you. So I created this version of a bunch of scenes that's already complete, all right? So we've got 4 basic scenes. And you can see I've got myself in the camera, I've got my logo, I've got a background, and then down here I'll switch scenes just to kind of show you. I've also got this. I don't have my iPad plugged in yet, but I'll show you that in a little bit. And then I've got the 88 keys with the overhead camera, so you can see my hands. There's the piano. And then I've got one that I made space for my iPad as well. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, if I was going to set this up with RockOutLoud.Live, I would first move this over to the side, because I don't want it taking up, you know, my entire desktop, and I don't need it to actually. I can just move it over here on the side. And then I can do kind of the same thing with RockOutLoud.Live. Now, I place it on my desktop. The reason why you're seeing it over there is because I have a camera right here that's pointed toward me that sits kind of like right in front of a big monitor. And I use that so I'm looking at the camera when I'm looking at the student on screen. All right, so then if we go to first OBS and start virtual camera, you're not going to see anything. It just lights up blue. And then I'm going to go over to RockOutLoud.Live, and I'm going to hit Start Lesson. Now watch what happens. This is incognito, so it's the first time it's looking for the camera, right? And there's the problem that we've been having is you have to set this up once, and then it doesn't let you change it. But now you're going to have this new tool, OBS. And what you do is you look for the OBS virtual camera. And it's going to mirror everything that is happening on the OBS preview screen that you're seeing on the left side. All right. Now, the microphone, whole different thing. You plug in your microphone, you set that up, and away you go. I have a bunch of different microphones, and right now you can kind of see it's moving because I have a virtual microphone set up. I'm just going to leave that. And then what I would do is just hit Allow while visiting the site, and that will just make sure it stays that way every time. Don't worry about the whole flip thing. Most of you know that that isn't the way the students see it. It's just like your self view, and you can come down here and flip it anyway. So I'm going to pretend to be a student for just a second on my iPad, and let's say my student has their iPad set up, and they go open up the RockOutLoud.Live app, and I'll just type in Ian's iPad, go in the lesson ID, Ian Belloso. Okay, so my student comes in. They're looking at their iPad, and you're going to see like 3 of me in just a second. Okay, and they ask to join, and I get the little join reminder. And when I hit admit, one thing I want to set up first is I usually come down here and do this because I want to be able to see kind of a side-by-side. If you like seeing, you know, things big, obviously you can adjust your screen however you want, but I want to keep OBS in view because I need to switch scenes, or I need to see, you know, what's going on over there. All right, so they've asked to join. I'm going to go ahead and hit admit. And actually, I should mute this microphone just so we don't get any kind of feedback going on. All right, so there we go. So over there is me. Turn down the volume. Okay, so I'm the student and I'm the teacher. All right, so, but see, you're seeing your student over here. It's still kind of loud. You're seeing your student over here on this side, or if you want it full screen, you can do that. And then your own self view is the smaller thumbnail, right? But see how easy that was? I just turned on the virtual camera, set that up as my camera in RockOutLoud.Live, and then away we go. Go ahead and get rid of this. So that's how you connect to RockOutLoud.Live. I'm going to go ahead and sign out here. And again, for those of you just joining, I kind of jumped to the end, right? So what we're going to do next is I'm going to go through and spend the next half hour talking about how to set up these scenes, because what you're seeing right now is a kind of more completed setup, right? So I've got these 4 scenes. What I typically use looks a bit more like this. And if you were to do coaching with me, I would walk you through how to build what I call the cinematic scene scheme. And then it's all these different scenes, some of which are like just, hey, I want to play a video. You know, and then there's some that are like, okay, I want to show my face. All right, or I want to show my keyboard. All right, and have the camera like overhead. I have 3 cameras, people. You wouldn't have to do that necessarily, but you know, and I've got a background, I've got a logo, you know. So I go through with one-on-one teachers and I show them how to set that up. Today, I'm just going to show you how to set up. Hopefully, we have time to get through these. Whoops, not 2 scenes. It's going to switch. Give us just a second. And this little scene collection, by the way, you can save different collections of scenes and go back and forth between them. If you have different, you know, maybe you teach more than one instrument and you want to have one scene that's just for guitar lessons and you have another scene that's meant more for piano lessons, you can set up like different scenarios like that, which is kind of cool. So just checking on the chat here real quick. Scene collection versus profile. So that is an advanced thing, and profiles and scene collections kind of work together. And I do cover that, or I should say I covered that in my course, and that's one of those things I would get into with a more advanced OBS user. We're not going to worry about creating scene collections or profiles today, and in fact, I'm not even going to answer a whole lot of questions today, although you guys are welcome to put your questions in the chat. If I have time at the end, I'll try to do that. Most of the Q&A is reserved for the live Zoom that's happening right after the workshop today. And that's where we can get into some more advanced stuff. So Judy, I think it's Judy, Music with Judy. You're welcome to still go sign up for the live Q&A upgrade, and then just make sure you log into your account so you can get the Zoom link. All right. Okay, so we're in OBS. We're going to create these 4 scenes. I'm going to show you how to just really quickly set up your face cam scene, which is just like a chat. I'm going to show you how to set up your piano keyboard along with that. And then if you'll see, it'll make more sense in a minute. I'm going to have my iPad over here, but this could just be really your sheet music from any source. It doesn't have to be your iPad, but I'm going to show you how to do it on an iPad or maybe a tablet if you're not on if you're not using an iPad. You could be using an Android tablet or something as well. So let's just start from scratch. So let's do that next. Okay, let me just for a second here go back to my presentation and just make sure that I am still set up. Okay, things are going nuts for a second here. Give me just a second. We're having a little bit of a lag issue. Wow. Let's just go back to chat. Okay. My presentation is kind of freaking out for a second, so let me just... There we go. I see what's going on. Okay. So yeah, let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and go back over to OBS, and I'll do this little setup. But let me make sure I have my notes so I know what I'm going through here. Okay, so we're going to do a scene construction, and I'm just going to walk you through how I would build those 4 scenes that I showed you. Let's go back to desktop. It doesn't seem to be sharing my desktop for some reason. This is what happens when you run too many things at once. All right. We're having a little bit of a tech issue. I think I'm maxing out my computer, believe it or not. Okay, maybe it will let me do this. There we go. Okay. So if I switch back over here, yep, there we go. Okay, so OBS. This is how it looks when you just start from scratch and you have nothing created, all right? And what we're going to do here is we're just going to add a webcam. And the way you do this, both in Windows and in Mac, is you go down to the sources area here. And in the sources, there's a little plus button, and you want to add what's called a video capture device. This list will change a little bit in Windows versus Mac, but they'll both have this video capture device. Okay, we're going to name this webcam, and then what you get is a little properties dialog for you to choose your camera. I have a bunch of cameras, but I'm just going to choose this same one that I've been using, which is shown right there. Now, you can go in and like get really nerdy with like your resolutions and stuff, but I recommend you just use the preset and set it to high to get the best resolution. All right. If you do that and you have a high resolution camera, it's going to fill the whole screen. If you were to use something like if I use my MacBook Pro, it's it's an HD camera, but it's 720p. And so you can see it didn't fill the whole screen. And so what I would need to do is either click and drag this window. You can grab any of these little knobs or nodules and move it to click and drag and make it bigger. Or what's preferred is just to come down here and right click on webcam, your source, and go up to this transform. We're going to use this transform a lot, so get used to seeing this. We're going to go down and just fit to screen. And see, it just blows it up nice and big. I'm going to go ahead and switch this back to that other camera, though, just to make it easy on us, because I think it looks better, too. Okay, so that's our first video capture device, the webcam. I mean, this is just as good as any RockOutLoud.Live or Zoom or whatever. You have a camera, right? It's not really what we're here for. What we want to be able to do is to combine this with other things. So one of the things that we want to do is add a keyboard, and you do that by adding a second source. So I'm going to add this second camera, which is also a video capture device, and we're going to call it keys. And this second camera is my Logitech Brio. There we go. Now you can see that it is looking down from overhead, and it is upside down. And I'm just using that preset again. All right, now we're going to get to turn that around in just a second. We're going to use that transform again, but before we do that, I'm going to crop. And the way that you crop is you hold down either the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows, and you grab one of those nodules. And as you drag, it will actually crop, and you can kind of see it peeling back and showing the layer behind it, which is my regular camera. And I'm going to crop the sides as well, because we don't need any of that nonsense. Oops. There we go. And then once you have that, then you can go and transform. So I'm going to go down here to the sources and select keys, right click, transform. And what I want to do first is fit it to screen. So it's going to stretch it across, and I want you to notice that the red guides all went to the edges again, all right? And so what I'm going to do first is just grab the top edge here and pull it down so it only goes around this bit right here, which is where I'm going to put it. But again, it's upside down. So again, right click, transform, and this time we're going to go to rotate 180 degrees. And there you go. Now it's set up the way it's supposed to be. And I do want it down here, but I don't want to have my chin on the keyboard. So the other thing that I'm going to do here is to resize and position my webcam. And I can do that by selecting the webcam. And now you can see the border. And I'm going to just click and drag it up here. So now my whole picture of my webcam is sitting up on top of the keyboard. Maybe for some of you, that's good enough. We're going to take it a step further. Now, we have two sources. We only have one scene. And what we need to do then is make one of these just my chat view and one of these the keyboard and chat. The reason why I created both of them is because it's easier to remove, it's easier to delete than it is to add. See, we spent time creating this and cropping it. Now, it's really easy to just go over to the scene, and what I want you to notice is when I right click on it, I can do lots of things. I can rename it, which we're going to do in a second, but I can also duplicate it. And so now I get another scene. It has to change the name because you can't have anything with the same name in here. So it calls it scene 2. We're going to actually call this second scene 88 keys. And that's to indicate that this is the one that we want to have the keyboard in the shot. All right. So now if I go back to my other scene, right now it doesn't look any different because remember we duplicated it. But if I then rename this to Facecam, I can then just get rid of the keys. And you go down here and delete. And then we're going to go back to that webcam, right click, and here we are again at transform. And we're going to fit to screen. There we are. All right, now I want to mention one more time the download resources link that I gave you earlier, and you can find it at the top of the chat as well. Once I get my presentation back up, I can show you that link again in just a minute. But the reason why you want that is because there's another resource I'm giving you guys access to today called a scene map. A scene map is just an image, and I basically created a bunch of images to help guide you in creating these scenes in a nice way graphically. All right, so before we do that, let's talk about adding a background, because when you go over here to the 88 keys, and by the way, you can switch between scenes by just clicking on one of the scenes and it switches. So I have both views. But I want you to notice in the 88 keys, I've just got black bar backgrounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a picture. I'm going to add an image source. And I'm going to call it BG, stands for background. And I've got some sources here in my pictures. I have like wallpapers. And these are specifically meant to act as backgrounds. So we'll use this kind of dark green background. You know what? It's almost winter season. Let's use a winter season one. You can kind of see I've got some of these almost Christmassy looking ones. I like this one. Here we go. All right. Don't worry about this stuff here. That's for people that are photographers and videographers that know what they're doing. You don't need to do anything with it. In fact, you can just leave it. Now, the background is in the foreground. That's why you can't see me anymore. And when you look down here at your sources, you can see the one that's highlighted blue is on top. That is the background that's on top in the layers. So we need to move it down to the bottom. I can either click and drag it, or I can use the arrows here to move it down. And now it's in the background. The webcam is on top of it, and the keys are on top of it. So I have a little bit of a background, and this starts to give it more of a nice virtual space. We're also going to add a logo. So if I add another image, I can add my logo, browse, and this I have actually saved in my logos. Oop, that's not it. There we go. We'll use this one. All right, so this is my Piano Lessons logo for Piano Belloso Music, and it's huge. Well, what do we need to do? We need to resize it. So again, here we are. We're going to right-click on logo, go to not resize, but transform. And we're going to go not fit to screen. In this case, we actually don't want to transform it. We want to resize it. I'm sorry. You can just click on the handles. Now make sure that you actually have the logo selected down here, or you'll end up accidentally clicking the wrong thing. If I just start to drag this to the left, you'll see it get smaller and smaller until I can put it right over here where I want it, which is, I usually kind of use it in this little space above my piano to hide the camera. But you could put it over here on the left. You could put it over there on the right, wherever you want it. I'm just going to put it there for now. If you're not sure, like I said, you can use what's called a scene map. So I'll just show you what that looks like. And if you purchase a scene map collection from me, you'll get all of these. They look like this. Oh, that's not the one. Scene map. Okay. And this is actually for the 88 keys scene, so I'm just going to look for that one in particular. But you're going to get all of these when you purchase the scene maps. You get ones for like 10 different scene variations. This is the one for 88 keys and a single keyboard. So when I do that, this picture shows up, and it shows me where I can put things and how to line it up. But I want this to be my background, so I'm actually going to put it way down here at the bottom, kind of like the background. And then see that now I can actually select my different things. Let's start with the webcam, and I can resize that to make it fit in this little box down here. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going for perfection here, but it's a guide, right? So see, here's my logo. I could put it over there. And then the keys, I'm going to do this. Now, I want you to notice that I've got some margin, and the reason I do that is because, remember, this is whatever's on this canvas is what your students are going to see, and your students are also seeing the app stuff. So like the camera's over there, maybe there might be stuff up at the top, there might be stuff at the bottom for the controls, right? So you want to leave some margin on the sides, and I've built those into these scene maps. And then once you have that, you can just hide. So any of these layers can be hidden by just clicking on the little I button. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And now I have my cool little 88 keys scene. You can copy any sources into other scenes. So like the face cam scene, if I want to build that, I could copy this scene map and move it over to the face cam scene. So I'm going to copy it. Where is it? Copy. But I want you to notice that when I paste it here in the sources, right click, you have paste reference and paste duplicate. And the one that we want is paste reference, usually. Duplicate will create a new source, like a separate file will be referenced. If you paste reference, then anytime you change the file, that image, if I change it, well, it will change on any of the other scenes that I have it copied to as well. So they're like connected to each other. All right, so this is the same scene map I had earlier, but this is the one that I want for a different type of scene. So I'm going to go into this image file. You can kind of see the files right here. I can browse and choose a different file. This time I'll use the face cam with the left logo. Let's try that. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to put my camera there and put the logo on the left. Let's move the scene map down to the bottom. And I'm just going to move the camera in like this. Like this. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. I can set it up however I want. And then I could add the logo in. And the logo I would get by copying this as well. So copy, go over to the face cam, paste it in. And I can put that logo there. If you ever need to swap out your logo or you update it because you used paste reference, you only have to change one of them, and away you go. It's kind of cool. Same thing with my background. Copy. Paste it in there at the bottom. And see, this is my Christmas background. Maybe I want to change it when we get into spring. And the same thing, I can replace it with a different image. It will update all of the different scenes that have that image. Okay, so we're already getting short on time. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit here. We've covered a lot already. The last scene I'm going to cover is just using all of these together with your iPad, or maybe just another program that you want to show the score in. And so what we're going to do for that is we're going to start with the one with the most elements. We're going to start with the 88 keys. I am going to duplicate this scene, and we're going to call this 88 keys plus iPad. Let me make sure I'm not missing any steps here real quick. All right, so again, it's easier to duplicate rather than rebuilding from scratch, because you want to we're going to reuse all of these elements. We're just adding a new one as well. All right. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to connect my iPad. Okay, because I'm going to use my iPad. Now, you can just connect this with a USB cable if you're on a Mac. I will tell you that if you've never connected to your Mac before, the first time you do it, you'll get like a little permissions pop-up. May even give you a code to make sure that you can make it work with your Mac. This will not work on a Windows machine. So I have a different solution for Windows that we're not going to get into today, but you can actually wirelessly connect to a Windows laptop. Or if you have an Android or Samsung device, there's some laptops that will accept those as a source if you plug them in with a USB cable. Okay. So mine's already set up, but if you do this while OBS is open, you're probably going to have to close OBS. In fact, just do that. Close OBS before you set up your iPad or plug in your iPad for the first time, and then go through the permissions thing and then reopen OBS, because otherwise it won't show up in your sources. All right. And here's what I'm talking about. If I go to down here to my sources and I click on add, we're going to add a new video capture device, and it's going to be called the Ian's iPad. You can name these whatever you want, but you can see it shows up in the list because I have it connected to my computer with a cable. I could also use my phone, by the way. The latest OS of Mac allows you to do continuity camera when you're plugged in. So you could even use that as your face camera in some instances, right? Again, I'm going to leave this preset on high because I want really good resolution. And there you go. You're looking at my iPad, and it's huge. We're going to transform this to fit the screen, just so I can manage this. And then we're going to move it over here like this a little bit. And we're going to make it smaller, like this. Now, the whole point of this is that I want to be able to use this with Fourscore, which is an app I use to show sheet music. And see, I can interact with that, and whatever I show on my iPad is going to show up on screen in this scene, which is great. All right, so let's go back to our scene map, because again, we need to update it with this great resource I created. So this is keys plus iPad. That's the one we want. And I'm going to turn it on again so we can see it. And I'm actually going to move it. We'll leave it back there because I can kind of see everything in the background. All right. So the keys are down here. Oops, see, I'm grabbing the wrong thing. So be careful when you're clicking things on the canvas. It's better to make sure that you select whatever down there. But if you do anything wrong, if you kind of move it off to the side and you didn't mean to or whatever, just hit Command Z or Control Z on Windows, and that'll just undo what you did. Non-destructive editing. It's great. All right, so make sure I have my scene map. I don't want to select the scene map. I want to select the keys. There, okay. And now I'm going to move them just a little bit down here. It's still about right, but I need to sort of resize the camera. Right now, it's like going across the whole screen, and what we want to do is move it over here. See, it's already resizing it as I do that. You can also crop this, by the way, and if you don't want to see the entire camera. I often do that, but like if you only wanted to see a narrow view of me, for instance, you can hold down the Option key. We went through cropping earlier when we did the keyboard, but again, it's the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows if you want to crop the view of your camera. Don't want to see the laundry in the background or what have you, right? And then of course our logo goes there. We already have the logo. It's just hiding back here. And I'm going to make it smaller. There we go. See, now I have my iPad with a score that I can show. Student can still see me. Let's get rid of the scene map now. Nice little background for the winter time, and we're still going to be able to see the keyboard, which is great. All right, now I have the ability to show not only this keyboard, but what's called a Meticulous MIDI keyboard, which has light up keys and that kind of stuff. That again is a much more advanced topic. I just want to let you know. I can I can help you set that up one-on-one, but that's something that is not going to be covered today, just so you know. All right. So once you have that 88 keys plus iPad, again, I could continue to like duplicate this scene if I just want my face and the iPad. There's lots of different configurations. That's why that scene map guide has all those different variations. Is you can configure this however you want. It's great. And then with that virtual camera on, which I don't need anymore, I can turn that off. You just connect it to Roll or Zoom or whatever platform you're using, and away you go. It's great. All right. Let's go back to the chat for a minute. Let's see if it will actually switch back to chat. There we go. Okay. I don't know why my my presentation, I think it's kind of overloading things a little bit. There's one other thing I wanted to show you, and that is just the ability to use, you can use hotkeys. There's 4 different ways to switch scenes. You can do it with just the mouse. That's a very straightforward, simple way. If you have OBS open over here and you have Roll open over here, you can just switch scenes by clicking on whatever scene you want. But you can also program certain shortcuts to switch scenes, like Control 1 or Option 1, you know, that kind of thing. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that today. The most popular one, though, is to use something called the Elgato Stream Deck. Now, there is a free version of the Elgato Stream Deck that you can use and set that up with OBS. It's very easy to do. And I provided a link in the, again, the resource download. So I need to see if I can get back to my presentation here to wrap things up with you guys a little bit. I'm just going to look at the chat here. Yeah, okay, so Judy is asking what source is the iPad. You're going to have to go back and watch the replay on that. But it's, when I connect it to my laptop, remember what I said is, this is only going to work on certain OSs, so I don't know what OS you're working on, but only recent OSs work for this. But if you connect it to your laptop, you should get kind of a pop-up on your iPad or your MacBook that says, such and such device is trying to connect. Are you going to allow it? And you have to go through that allow process first with OBS closed. And then when you reopen OBS, you're looking for another camera, essentially. It's a video capture device. And that video capture device list should have iPad in there somewhere. And then that's your source. Now, I use a wireless source. It's an app called Reflector. And that makes it so I can move my iPad around a little more easily. I don't have to plug it in. I don't have to go through that. But it is very reliable to plug it in. I will say that. More reliable than having it work wirelessly over your network. It's a little bit more complicated. Okay, let's see if I can get this this presentation working. Okay, I'm just going to talk real quick. We're going to wrap up. If you are coming to the Zoom workshop, if you have the link to go and all that, we're going to be a few minutes late, but of course you can go on over to the waiting room, or you can stay here until we pop over there. I'm going to run over just a few minutes, it looks like. So I wanted to make sure I talk just for a second about that virtual camera and audio. So let's see if it will let me switch to the presentation. It will not. There we go. Okay, so this is just a diagram showing you like what's happening. OBS can capture all of these different inputs, right? The video, right? So you capture your piano, you capture your sheet music, you capture your keyboard. Those are all cameras, as well as your iPad, I guess, or your application. The background, right? And those are all going into OBS and they're mixing it up. And then what it does as an output is it sends it either to your live stream or to a hard drive if you're recording, or to that one on the bottom over there called the virtual camera. All right, now that's the video. All right, so if you have that sending to the virtual camera, you just connect it like I showed you earlier to Zoom or RockOutLoud. The camera input becomes OBS virtual camera. And all of the visuals will go over no problem. The issue with OBS in particular is that that sound does not come over with the virtual camera. There is no virtual microphone. So if you want just kind of a simple answer to how to deal with that, I just call it the separated solution. And that's, you're going to use the virtual camera for video only. And what you do is you just use your microphone probably like you're already used to. You plug that microphone not into OBS, but into Zoom or RockOutLoud.Live. You use that as your audio source. If you have your piano, an acoustic piano, and it's being picked up by that microphone, you're probably already doing this. You don't change anything about that. Your video is different now. So all of that stuff in OBS with the audio, you don't even need to worry about. It's a completely separate thing. Same thing if I want to capture my speakers, or if I have a digital keyboard, I can plug those into my computer and capture the sound digitally, either through a virtual piano or through MIDI or through an audio interface if you have one of those. Another advanced topic, by the way. And then what you would do for screen sharing, if you need the audio for screen sharing a video or something, instead of using OBS to show a video, because you won't be able to have the sound carry over, you just use RockOutLoud.Live. RockOutLoud.Live has the ability to screen share with audio. So does Zoom. So you're already used to using that probably, and you would just use that like normal. But now you also have the ability to switch cameras a lot easier, and you're not having to worry about the complexity. Now, if you want a virtual camera for OBS, there is another solution. I'm just saying it's more advanced, and that's something that I can help you set up if you're interested. Or if you're interested in Ecamm Live, that's the one I use all the time. I can also help you set that up. Works very similar to OBS. It's just a different program, and it's for Mac only. Okay, so I went through the live demo. We're done with that. But speaking of helping you set you up, I want to just make sure you guys have this before we close out today. And now that you've seen how OBS comes together, I hope you might be feeling two things at once: a little excited and maybe a little unsure of how to fit this into your exact setup. So I want you to know that I want to help you customizing this. I can help you with whatever your instruments are, your cameras. We didn't even talk about hardware. Your teaching flow. I love to talk with you about all of that and give you some advice. And I can give you a free tech strategy call if you go to my Calendly or take a picture of the barcode there, and you'll get the link. But you can schedule that call. Just go to the Calendly and we'll set that up. In that call, we're going to look at where you are right now and what you want your studio to feel like and what the next small steps should be. And you don't have to decode any of this alone. I help teachers build clarity and confidence every day. So if you'd like to explore that more with me, you can book time at my Calendly link. And if you're more of a DIY learner, I also have something coming soon for you. I'm going to have some mini courses and some guides that you're going to have access to. And in fact, if you are doing coaching with me, you're going to be accessing those anyway. The same way that you give your students homework, go home and practice. Well, I'm going to give you homework to practice every week. So that's what I do for my one-on-one consultation stuff. So once again, here is the resource guide that has all of the links for today. Make sure you get that Google Doc, if nothing else. It is also at the very top of the chat. And I want to just thank you for tuning in. Everything that I'm talking about today has to do with this program I've created called Techier Teacher. And you can go find a lot on my website. I'm going to be adding a lot more over the coming months. And it's all designed specifically for you. I have an entire system that I've created courses and tutorials for, having to do with OBS, having to do with arranging your digital sheet music library, that app I mentioned, Fourscore, setting up MIDI, setting up a mobile device mirror, which is the wireless version of showing your iPad, getting that virtual camera and the virtual microphone set up. Those are all things that are part of something I call the Tech 5 Toolkit. So I have a system designed to walk you through pretty much all of those. You can't do it in a day. You probably can't even do it in a week, and I wouldn't recommend trying to do everything at once anyway. You may not want all of that, but I can fine-tune all of that for you. And that's the new Techier Teacher. We're going to be setting up mini courses. I'll have some more regular live workshops that I update regularly, and you can basically start anywhere, just wherever you're at. Eventually, I'd like to have community support. So if that's something you're interested in, if you'd like to be a part of this as a community, like have access to each other and have help other teachers yourself maybe, I would love for you to be a part of that. You're on my list. If you signed up for the workshop today, you'll be hearing more from me about that in the coming weeks. So I have resources like this as well, talking about the top 3 online teaching platforms, how to distinguish between them and help you figure out which ones are going to work best for your students and your setup. Lots of things like that. I talk about gear and hardware. So all that to say, now we're going to move over to the live Q&A on Zoom. So I'm going to be signing off here in just a second, and I just want to thank you guys for attending. If you are already signed up for the Zoom meeting, find your link in your account, or you might have gotten it in an email as well. If you just signed up today, you probably didn't get the email, so make sure you log into your account for that product, and you'll find the Zoom link in there. I wish you guys well. I will be active on the RockOutLoud.Live Facebook group, so if you have further questions down the road, you're welcome to just message me, but don't forget to schedule your free call as well. Thank you guys so much for attending today, and have a great weekend.